for this exercise, I'm going to use the Pathfinder tool again. Whoops. With some exercises, but I'm also going to do a few other little techniques as well to make things a little easier with some of these shapes. Okay, so what I'll do, okay, I'll just, well, I might just select this.
When you put that picture in, is it better just to open it? Because I've been just opening it into a new
in Illustrator? That's fine. That's fine. No, that's fine. Yeah. Okay. So I might just bring the opacity down just so it doesn't get too distracting, and I'll lock it, and I'll just create a new layer. So I'll do this on here. Now, what we have here is we have these really gentle rounded shapes with curves on the bottom, and I could definitely use my pen tool and create that shape, but I'm going to do a quicker way with this. Now, to do this, I'm going to use the stroke panel. So I'll just tear that off, and in my stroke panel, I have options. Okay, and I'm going to use some of these options. Now, what I'll do is, rather than try and create a shape which follows this outline of the edge, I'm going to use the pen tool, and I'm going to use a path. So I'll just click and drag, and click and drag. So I'll just tap my return key, and I'll make this into a stroke. And what I'll do is I'm going to make this stroke much bolder, much bigger. So I've got my stroke panel, so I actually have it here, and let's just make it 20, more than that, 80, more than that, 100. Well, I might need to make it more, so I'm just going to click the up button. Now I could just keep on clicking that to go up to the height, but if I hold down the shift key, it will actually go up in, while I'm clicking the up arrow, it will go up in 10-point increments. Okay, so that's getting there. Now I want these curved corners. Now this is the wonderful thing about the stroke panel. I can actually put a cap on the stroke. And so here, I'll just move my points with the white arrow, and I'll just get a nice, gentle curve with the direct selection tool. So let's just say that is pretty good. Now, what I can do, this is the wonderful thing about strokes, is that I can keep on adjusting the weight. I can adjust the actual angle of it very easily, but I can actually convert this to a filled shape. And so I'll do that with the expand. So in my object drop bit down menu, I actually have expand. So once I do this, I won't be able to adjust the stroke as easily anymore because it'll be a shape. But if I go expand, this is now a filled shape. Okay. Now, with this in mind, okay, well, I can create other parts for it. So let's just create a leg. Okay, I'll just change the color of this stroke so that we can see it okay. I'll just make it into a, I don't know, brown. And with my up arrow, holding down the shift key, and putting a cap on it. Okay, I'll just zoom in and I can do those little adjustments. Okay, that's not too bad. So I'll copy that. I'll just paste it. And rotate that. That one's about there. Okay. Get my pen tool again, or I might just tear that off again. Reset it. Okay. Tap return. I can make that a little smaller, so like that. Wide arrow, get my angles about right. I might just copy that. And paste it. There's another one. And I can just move that over there. It's not too bad. Get my wide arrow. Get my little angles right. Okay. So we'll say that's all right. So I'll expand that one. And let's just expand this one. Okay. So I've got those pieces. I better have a look at my layers panel. Okay, I'll just hide these. I'll bring them back in a minute. I'll get another shape. That looks like it's pretty straight. Tap return. Hold that shift key down, put a cap on it. Okay. Leave that one as is. So we'll expand that one. Okay, so that's a shape. So just coming through, I can, oops, get my colors right, get my fill right. Get my layers up. Show my layers. And I think that's a little darker. I'll just drag my in here. Is it darker or lighter? I can't remember. Okay, well, I'll be able to change all the colors pretty soon. one's a bit paler. I'll show you the swatch panel in a moment. Okay, so here's my legs and arms. So I'll drag those underneath. So far, so good. Okay, I'll make a peak for the cap. Just make that like that. Just make that red. Okay. And I'll expand that. Okay. So, got the pieces to start with. So I think I might get my friend the divide tool up and just divide these. So now, getting close so I can actually grab it. So there's a piece, I don't need that anymore. This one here, well, let's make that into another color. So, I don't know, red, get what it was. Okay. Come back to my layers. And I'll put all of this group down underneath. Okay, so far so good. All right, so using the stroke and expanding is actually very handy. So I'll just hide that for a moment. So get my circle. Okay. Make that white for the moment. Now I could just, again, use another shape to divide that up. Again, works very, very quickly if I do this. So just change the color of that for a moment. Rotate it, move it roughly where it needs to be. Yeah, that's not too bad. Just rotate it a little bit more. Select both of those and divide. So, delete, delete. I'll get a little eye happening. Let's make this flat, put a cap on it. Zoom in. Okay, and just get our little shapes, all right. And, well, I think I can just copy that. Copy, I'll just paste it, move it over there. I can shorten it, move it. Now, I've actually, in my Illustrator preferences, I've got a, I'll just show you, in my selection and anchor point, I think I've got something that scales, might be in general, scale strokes and effects ticked. This means when I make a stroke smaller, the stroke itself becomes smaller in proportion to the scaling. Okay, so that's just a handy little thing. Now I want this to be the same stroke as this shape. So I've got this eyedropper tool. And if I just click on this eyedropper on this stroke, it actually is exactly the same. It gives me the same qualities. So the eyedropper tool, you can select a shape and then click on something else and it will change the color. So if I came over and I just clicked on this, it's actually made a fill the same as what I had selected. So can be quite handy. Oops, selecting things. All right, so I might just save this at this point, and I'll call it Hot Dog Man, for want of a better name. And so just looking at my layers, I've got all of these pieces. Okay, I'll just take it a bit further. Let's just ellipse key, hold down the option key, drag outwards, and let's just make that into a darker brown color. Move that down to the very bottom. Okay, so far so good. Now this is all quite straightforward, just by creating strokes, putting a cap on them, and then expanding them. Okay. So now I'm going to introduce you to another tool that I find very, very helpful. So what I'll do is I'll just hide these shapes. Now, just looking at this sort of little design, which is the mustard shape, I could put a whole lot of circles together. Oops. And unite them all to make that mustard shape. That would be fine. Okay. Definitely do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to introduce you to one of my favorite tools. Get these things out of the way. And it lives underneath the paintbrush tool. It's called the blob brush tool, or as I call it, the blobby brush tool. Now, just to show you what, firstly, a paintbrush does, so I'm going to just double click on that brush, and firstly, I'm going to have keep selected. So this is going to be quite important because it will actually, every time I create something, it will stay selected. So that's quite handy. I can make the paintbrush smooth. So if I've had 2 double espressos before working on my design, and my hand is a bit fidgety, I can actually smooth out my lines. Okay, so that's a handy little thing. So the paintbrush, if I do it, is a stroke. Okay, so I'm not going to use it, but I could come in and paint my shape and eventually fill it. That'll do it. I could do that, but I'm not going to do that. So I'll delete it. Now, the blobby brush tool, same thing. I'm going to double click and make sure the keep selected is open, selected. Now, when you do this, just make the brush bigger. We are going to be able to adjust it, but just make it bigger. Okay, I've got it about 100 point. You'll notice here that I actually have all these settings. So I'm using a graphic tablet, and I could actually make the pressure that I press down with the graphic tablet adjust the weight of the stroke. Okay, so it's very, very interesting the way that the graphic tablet has been able to develop and relate to digital programs like Illustrator. I'm just going to leave it as is. Okay, in fact, I might just make that a bit bigger. Oh, now have a look. This brush is really, really big. I don't need it that big. I'll make it smaller. Now, I have a shortcut to make my brush bigger and smaller, and it's the left bracket and the right bracket. Now, these are the two brackets just to the right of your P key. So the left bracket will make my brush smaller. The right bracket will make my brush bigger. It's just a little shortcut. So just watch what happens here. I'll just make the color a bit lighter. In fact, I'll make it into a mustardy sort of yellow color. Now, just watch what happens when I paint. That's actually a shape. Okay. Now, it's still selected. So I'll come in. And so what it's doing is it's actually adding to the shape as I'm overlapping it. Okay. And so this is an amazing little thing with illustration, because imagine trying to create that shape with the pen tool. And so that is a path, but it's been filled. Okay, so the blobby brush tool, it is a wonderful way to actually create custom shapes, hand-drawn shapes, very, very quickly and very, very easily. Anyway, so I'll delete that one I've just done. So now let's bring all our pieces together. I think the mustard goes underneath the bun a little bit. So there it is. And here we have, well, not the most appetizing looking hot dog in terms of color. Probably need to get my colors right. But what I've been able to do is make these shapes with the pen tool as strokes and then convert them to shapes. Okay, and so very, very straightforward to be able to create these custom shapes that would take a long, long time to try and get perfect as shapes in their own way. Okay, so we'll go there. Oh, I'll show you one more thing since we're coming to a, this is our last class with Illustrator with illustration, because next week we will be doing type. I'm just going to select this shape and I'm going to put a blur on it because it's a shadow. And so these live up in the effects. I've also got a whole heap of other things like distort and transform. I'll show you some of those. Put a Gaussian blur. Here's my blur. Don't know what Gaussian actually means, but I'm sure it means something. And I'll just bring my opacity down. And so now I have a blurry shape. Okay.